What happens when one of the most talked about figures in the world sits down for what should be a straightforward interview and instead unleashes an attack so personal, so venomous, that security has to get involved? In just 38 seconds, a single comment would shatter any chance of civil conversation and end with an unprecedented removal from the studio. This is the story of the most explosive talk show moment in television history. The morning started like any other at the studio. Piers Morgan, the seasoned broadcaster known for his direct approach and unwavering commitment to truth, was preparing for another episode. His team had confirmed the guest weeks in advance. Meghan Markle, the former actress turned duchess turned media personality, was scheduled to discuss her latest ventures and public life. From the moment she walked onto the set, something felt different. The usual pleasantries before filming were clipped, almost dismissive. Piers extended his hand for a handshake. She looked at it, paused, and barely touched his fingers before pulling away. The crew exchanged glances. This was going to be interesting. The cameras started rolling. "Welcome to the show," Piers said with his trademark smile, settling into his chair. "Thank you for joining us today." "Thank you for having me," she replied, her tone flat, her eyes scanning the studio as if she were evaluating every corner, every person, every detail. "So, let's dive right in," Piers continued, consulting his notes. "You've been in the public eye for years now. How are you finding life these days?" "Well, Piers, I think that's a rather simplistic question. Don't you?" She shifted in her seat, crossing her legs with an air of superiority. "My life is incredibly complex, far more than most people could ever understand." Piers nodded, keeping his composure. "Of course. I'm simply trying to give you an opportunity to share your perspective with our viewers." "Your viewers," she repeated, a slight smirk forming. "Yes, well, I suppose they need someone to explain things to them at their level." The first red flag. Piers's eyebrows raised slightly, but he pressed on. Professional, as always. "You've made several public statements recently about your treatment in the media. Can you elaborate on that?" She leaned forward, her voice taking on a sharp edge. "The media has been absolutely ruthless, Piers. Ruthless. And you, sitting there in your comfortable chair with your comfortable life, and you couldn't possibly understand what it's like to be scrutinized the way I have been." "I'm a journalist," Piers responded calmly. "I've been in this industry for decades. I've faced my share of criticism and scrutiny. It comes with putting yourself in the public eye." "Oh, please," she scoffed, waving her hand dismissively. "You're a man. You have no idea what it's like to be a woman in my position. The double standards, the attacks, the constant judgment." "I'm not denying that you've faced challenges," Piers said, his voice steady. "But I'm trying to have a genuine conversation here. Help our viewers understand your perspective." "Your viewers don't want to understand," she shot back. "They want to tear me down. Just like you do." Piers paused, his jaw tightening slightly. "I don't want to tear you down. I want to ask you honest questions. That's my job." "Your job," she laughed, a cold, humorless sound. "Your job is to sit here and pretend you're some bastion of journalistic integrity while you throw softballs to people you like and ambush people you don't." "That's not true," Piers replied, his voice firm but controlled. "I treat every guest the same. I ask direct questions because I believe our viewers deserve honest answers, not rehearsed talking points." She stared at him, her expression hardening. "You know what your problem is, Piers. You think you're so important. You think your opinion matters. But at the end of the day, you're just another middle-aged man with a microphone, desperate to stay relevant." The studio fell silent. The crew members looked at each other, stunned. Piers took a breath, so maintaining his professionalism despite the personal attack. "Let's get back to the interview," he said quietly. "You mentioned earlier that you feel the media has been unfair to you. Can you give specific examples?" "Specific examples?" She laughed again, louder this time. "Every single day, Piers. Every single article, every single headline. They twist my words. They make up stories. They invade my privacy. The media reports on public figures, Piers explained, his patience wearing thin but still holding. When you step into the spotlight, when you do interviews, when you make public statements, that becomes news. That's how it works. That's how it works, she mocked, mimicking his voice. You sound like a broken record. Is that all you've got? Defend the system that tears people apart? Piers leaned forward, his eyes fixed on hers. I'm not defending anything except the truth. And the truth is, you've had more positive coverage than most people could dream of. You've been on magazine covers. You've had sympathetic documentaries. You've had platforms to share your story. What exactly are you complaining about? Her face flushed red. How dare you? How dare you sit there and diminish my experiences? You have no right to tell me what I should or shouldn't feel. I'm not telling you what to feel, Piers countered. I'm asking you to be specific. Give me concrete examples of this terrible treatment you keep mentioning. She stood up suddenly, her chair scraping against the floor. This is exactly what I'm talking about. This right here. You invite me on your show under the pretense of a fair conversation, and then you attack me. I haven't attacked you once, Piers said, remaining seated, his voice calm. I've asked you questions. That's not an attack. That's an interview. You're invalidating my truth, she declared, pointing at him. My truth is my truth, and you don't get to question it. Truth isn't subjective, Piers replied, his voice gaining strength. Truth is truth, and if you're making claims about being mistreated, I have every right to ask you to back those claims up with evidence. She turned to the camera, addressing it directly, ignoring Piers completely. This is what I have to deal with. This is the kind of man who thinks he can talk over women, who thinks he can demand proof when a woman shares her pain. I'm not talking over you, Piers interjected. You're the one who stood up. You're the one who's refused to answer a simple question. She whipped back around to face him. Because your questions are designed to trap me. You're not interested in my story. You're interested in making me look bad. If asking you to provide examples of your claims makes you look bad, maybe that says more about your claims than it does about my questions. The tension in the room was suffocating. The producers in the control room were frantically discussing whether to cut to commercial, but they couldn't look away. Nobody could. You know what, Piers? She took a step closer to his desk. You're a bully. You're a small, petty bully who gets off on making people uncomfortable. I'm holding you accountable, Piers responded, his voice unwavering. If that makes you uncomfortable, perhaps you should ask yourself why. She grabbed the glass of water from the desk, and for a moment, everyone thought she might throw it. Instead, she took a sip and set it down hard, water sloshing over the sides. I don't have to sit here and take this abuse, she announced. What abuse? Piers asked, genuinely confused now. I've been nothing but civil. I've asked you straightforward questions. If you can't handle basic journalism, why did you agree to come on the show? Because I thought you might have evolved, she snapped. I thought you might have learned something about empathy, about compassion. But you're the same as you've always been, a heartless robot reading from a script. I'm reading from a script? Piers gestured to his notes. You're the one who came in here with prepared talking points and accusations. I'm trying to have a real conversation. She looked around the studio, at the cameras, at the crew, her expression one of theatrical disbelief. Is anyone else seeing this? Is anyone else witnessing how he's treating me right now? The crew remained silent, professional, doing their jobs. This only seemed to infuriate her more. You're all complicit, she said, her voice rising. Every single one of you, just standing there, letting him berate me like this. Nobody's berating you, Piers said firmly. You're creating a narrative that doesn't exist. I've been respectful. I've given you every opportunity to make your case. You're the one who's turned this into a confrontation. Because you provoked me, she shouted. I asked you questions, Piers shouted back, his patience finally breaking through. That's literally what an interview is. Questions and answers. You came on this show knowing that. You agreed to this. She pulled off her microphone, the equipment clattering against the chair. I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. You're walking out? Piers asked, his voice a mix of disbelief and frustration. You're actually walking out because I asked you to back up your claims? I'm walking out because you're a toxic human being, she declared, gathering her belongings. And I refuse to be your punching bag for another second. I haven't laid a finger on you, Piers said, standing now. Metaphorically or otherwise. You came in here with an agenda, and when I didn't play along, you decided to make me the villain. You are the villain, she hissed. A producer stepped onto the set, trying to de-escalate. Perhaps we can take a quick break. Let everyone cool down, and then... No, she interrupted. There's no cooling down. There's no coming back from this. He's shown his true colors, and I want nothing to do with it. Piers crossed his arms, watching her with a mixture of anger and disappointment. This is incredibly unprofessional. Unprofessional? She laughed, that same cold laugh from earlier. You want to talk about unprofessional? How about ambushing a guest with hostile questions? How about creating an environment where a woman doesn't feel safe to share her experiences? What hostile questions? Piers demanded. Quote me one hostile question I've asked you today. One. She opened her mouth, closed it, then opened it again. All of them. Every single one has been designed to undermine me. That's not an answer, Piers pressed. Give me one specific question that was hostile. I don't have to justify myself to you, she replied, moving toward the exit. You don't have to justify yourself, Piers called after her, but you do have to live with the fact that you came on this show, made serious accusations about media treatment, and then couldn't provide a single concrete example when asked. She stopped at the edge of the set, turning back one last time. You want an example, Piers? Here's an example. You. Right now. This interview. This is exactly the kind of treatment I'm talking about. Dismissive, condescending, designed to make me look unreasonable. You're making yourself look unreasonable, Piers countered. I'm just giving you the platform to do it. Her face contorted with rage. You smug, arrogant, self-righteous piece of... She caught herself, but the damage was done. The words hung in the air, the implication clear. I think we're done here, Piers said coldly. Security, can you please escort our guest out? I don't need an escort, she spat. I'm leaving on my own. But as she turned to go, she bumped into a camera, nearly knocking it over. A crew member rushed to steady it, and she shoved past him without apology. Careful, Piers called out, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Wouldn't want to add destruction of property to today's list of accomplishments. She whirled around, pointing a finger at him, her voice shaking with fury. You will regret this, Piers. You will regret the way you've treated me today. Mark my words. The only thing I regret, Piers replied, his voice steady and final, is giving you the benefit of the doubt and thinking you were capable of having an adult conversation. Two security guards appeared at the edges of the set, not touching her, but making their presence known. She looked at them, then back at Piers, her chest heaving with anger. This isn't over, she said. Yes, it is, Piers responded. It's very much over. Goodbye. She stormed off the set, her heels clicking sharply against the floor, the sound echoing through the silent studio. The security guards followed at a respectful distance, ensuring she made it to the exit without further incident. Piers stood there for a long moment, staring at the empty space where she had been. The crew remained frozen, unsure what to do, unsure what to say. Finally, Piers turned to the camera. Well, he said, his voice returning to its professional tone, though the strain was evident. That was unexpected. We'll take a quick break and be right back. The moment the cameras cut, the studio erupted in whispers. Producers rushed onto the set. Assistants gathered in corners. everyone processing what they had just witnessed. Piers sat back down in his chair, running a hand through his hair. "Did that just happen?" one of the crew members asked. "It happened," Piers confirmed, his voice tired. A senior producer approached, tablet in hand. "Piers, we need to talk about how we're handling this." "We're not handling it," Piers said firmly. "We're going to come back from break. I'm going to address what happened honestly, and we're going to move on with the show." "But," the producer started. "But no buts," Piers interrupted. "She came on this show. She made accusations she couldn't back up. She attacked me personally, and she walked out. Those are the facts. We're not going to spin it. We're not going to downplay it, and we're certainly not going to apologize for doing our jobs." The producer nodded slowly. "Okay, but you know this is going to be everywhere." "Let it be everywhere," Piers said. "The truth is the truth. I asked fair questions. She couldn't handle them, and she left. End of story." But it wasn't the end of the story. In the hallway outside the studio, she was on her phone, her voice carrying back through the walls. "I want a statement prepared immediately," she was saying. "I was ambushed. I was attacked. I was forced to defend myself against a man who has a history of targeting strong women." A junior assistant standing near the door caught every word and relayed them quietly to the control room. Piers heard the report and shook his head. "Of course," he muttered. "Can't take responsibility. So create a new narrative." The makeup artist approached tentatively. "Do you need a touch-up before we come back?" Piers waved her off. "I'm fine. Let's just get this done." The countdown began. 5, 4, 3, 2. The cameras were live again. Piers looked directly into the lens, his expression serious but composed. "Welcome back," he began. "As you can see, our scheduled guest is no longer with us. What you witnessed before the break was, unfortunately, a complete breakdown of what should have been a straightforward interview. I asked questions. She was unable or unwilling to answer them. Instead, she chose to attack me personally, question my integrity, and ultimately walk off the set." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. "I want to be very clear about something," he continued. "I have spent my entire career asking difficult questions. That's what journalists do. We don't simply accept claims at face value. We probe. We investigate. We seek the truth. And when someone makes serious allegations about being mistreated, about being victimized, I believe they should be able to provide specifics. That's not an attack. That's accountability." His voice grew stronger, more passionate. "What happened here today is a perfect example of what's wrong with modern discourse. Someone makes a claim, and when you ask them to support that claim with evidence, you're labeled as hostile, as an attacker, as the problem. That's not journalism. That's not honest conversation. That's manipulation." He leaned back in his chair, his expression one of genuine disappointment. "I invited her here in good faith. I gave her a platform. I treated her with respect. And in return, I was called a bully, told I was toxic, and had my character assassinated because I did my job. If asking questions is now considered abuse, then we're in serious trouble as a society." The studio remained absolutely silent, every word resonating. "I stand by every question I asked today," Piers declared. "I stand by my approach, my tone, and my intention. I wanted to have a real conversation. She wanted an echo chamber. When she didn't get it, she lashed out and left. That speaks volumes about her, not about me." He shuffled his papers, signaling a transition. "We have a show to continue, and continue we will. Because unlike some people, I don't run away when things get challenging. I face them head on, with honesty and integrity." As the show moved to the next segment, the incident was already spreading like wildfire online. Clips were being shared, opinions were forming, battle lines were being drawn. But in the studio, Piers remained focused, professional, determined not to let the chaos derail the rest of the broadcast. During another commercial break, his phone buzzed with messages. colleagues offering support, friends checking in, critics already writing their condemnations. He ignored them all, staying present, staying grounded. 10 seconds, the floor manager called out. Piers took a deep breath, straightened his jacket, and prepared to continue. Because that's what professionals do. They don't walk out. They don't throw tantrums. They do their jobs, even when it's difficult, even when they're being unfairly attacked, even when the easier path would be to give up. The cameras went live again, and Piers Morgan, the broadcaster who had just weathered one of the most bizarre confrontations in television history, smiled at the audience and carried on with the show.